If the truth about humanity were ever engraved in stone, would anyone have the patience to read it to the end? Close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine yourself standing in front of a huge, desolate, and cold mountain range. The wind howls through the crevices of the rocks, carrying the cold air from the beginning of the earth. No phone signal, no city lights, just mountains, fog, and the whispers of ancient times. That's where it all began, the Bayan-Kara-Ula mountain range, located on the obscure border between Tibet and China. And in that place where nothing but ice and rock seems to exist, people discovered something that completely defies scientific logic, history, and our beliefs about the origin of man. Intruders from above. In June 1938, a small archaeological team, led by Professor Tsum Um Nui, a lecturer in archaeology at Peking University, made an expedition into this remote mountain region. At first, they believed that they were simply surveying caves that had been inhabited by ancient people. But no one could have expected that they would discover something that even modern science has so far been unable to explain. More than 700 strange stone discs secretly stored inside the mountain. Those discs, shaped like an ancient vinyl record, about 30 centimeters in diameter and with a round hole in the middle, were not simply ancient objects. On the surface of each disc were tiny, spiral engravings, which, if looked at closely, turned out to be characters, a language never recorded in any human phonetic system. The first question that rang out in the hazy atmosphere of that mountain: who created these discs? And more importantly, why? Skeletons that do not belong to humanity. In the caves, the archaeological team found more than just discs. They also discovered more than 800 small skeletons, with a shape that did not resemble modern humans. Less than 1 m tall, with unusually large heads and no teeth. These shapes did not fit any race that had ever been recorded in the history of this area. They did not resemble Homo sapiens, modern humans, nor did they resemble Neanderthals, prehistoric Europeans. They were completely alien, as if they came from a place that did not belong to Earth. No weapons, no signs of attack, just a silence that lasted for millennia, as if these creatures had lived and died in absolute isolation, forgotten by the outside world or deliberately hidden. Dropa, a name from afar. Years later, during further research on the discs, a scholar named Tsum Um Nui claimed to have deciphered part of the content engraved on the stone. And the content was not only shocking, but also threatened the basic beliefs of humanity. According to his translation, the discs recounted a cosmic journey. Tiny creatures, called Dropa, had come from a distant planet in the Milky Way. They had not come to invade. They were not warriors. They were lost souls, a crew that had crashed on Earth thousands of years ago, stranded forever on a planet that was not theirs. They had tried to survive. They had tried to communicate with the natives. They had tried to leave a message. And perhaps they had died with the faint hope that someone would find them someday. But they had not expected that. Instead of listening, humanity would turn its back. History is silent. Science is silent. Tsum Um Nui's translations, after being published in the early 1960s, were completely rejected by Beijing, calling them fantasies. He was forced to leave his academic position, and after a while, he disappeared without a trace. Some rumors say that he went to Japan and died alone there, taking his last notes about Dropa to his grave. Since then, almost all physical evidence of the plates has disappeared. The Xi'an Museum, which once housed 2 of the plates, no longer holds them. Not a single original translation has been preserved intact. Everything seems to have disappeared into nothingness, as if an invisible hand were manipulating history. Fact or hoax? There has been much debate in academic circles about the true existence of the Dropa stone. Some claim that it is just a modern legend, woven by the rich imagination and the need to create myths. But there are also many who believe that the truth is so great that it can be buried under its own weight. One thing is certain: if the discs are real, if the inscriptions on the stone really tell the story of an extraterrestrial civilization, then human history will have to be rewritten from the first page. Are you ready to listen to the voices from thousands of years ago? The story of the Dropa stone is not only a scientific story, but also a challenge to our current perception. We believe that we know the past. We believe that modern science can explain everything. But there are things, even engraved on stone, that can be forgotten by the human mind. In the upcoming journey, we will delve into every corner of the story, from archaeological mysteries, shady characters, scientific analysis, to silent and calculating conspiracies. And then, you may wonder, if those discs are telling the truth, then why is the world silent? Chapter 1. The Journey to Open the Door of Time. The history of the discovery of the Dropa Stone. There are discoveries that do not illuminate the past, but obscure the present. On an early morning in 1938, when the sun was still lazily hiding behind the misty mountains of the Tibet-China border, a small archaeological team of less than 10 people quietly entered the rugged terrain of the Bayan-Kara-Ula range. Led by a little-known scholar, Professor Tsum Um Nui, the journey was initially not expected to uncover anything great. But then, just a few weeks later, they touched a secret that could overturn humanity's entire perception of its own origins. The land that even the natives fear. The Bayan-Kara-Ula range is not a place for the faint-hearted. The steep mountains, razor-sharp rocks, and harsh weather almost year-round have left this place forgotten by the modern world for hundreds of years. The local Tibetans call this area by many ancient names, but one nickname makes explorers shudder: Tien Dia, Forbidden Area. The land where heaven and earth interrupt each other. Why is that? Because there are no animals living here, trees are sparse, and whenever anyone sets foot in this place, they report that at night there are always sounds that do not belong to any living creature. Like whispers from underground, like chains hitting rocks, like singing in a language that is not human. Professor Tsum Um Nui, upon entering this area, wrote in his travel diary a short but haunting sentence. The space here is like no place I have ever known. The air was thick, the clock slowed down, and the rocks seemed to listen. Man-made caves? Or ancient structures? After several weeks of searching, Professor Tsum Um Nui's team entered a cluster of caves deep in the valley. The first thing that struck them was that the cliffs were not as natural as expected. They were polished, evenly chiseled, and the cave passages were arranged logically, almost like the primitive architecture of an underground city. In the dim light of the torches, they recognized strange carvings on the cave walls, drawings depicting the sun, the moon, the stars, and round objects with tiny legs hovering in the air. Some of the drawings depicted large-headed, black-eyed creatures, not human, but standing next to humans, as if existing in parallel. But what awaited them inside was the real gateway to the abyss of mystery. The skeletons of an unnamed species. Deep in the cave, the archaeological team discovered an area that resembled an ancient cemetery. More than 800 skeletons were arranged in neat rows. But what puzzled them was the average height was only about 1.2 meters, with unusually large skulls, and especially the lower jaw had no teeth. One of the archaeologists initially thought that these might be the remains of children, but later examination of the bones showed that they were adults. The skeletons were complete enough to prove it. But how could there be such a small race of people living in a deadly mountain area like Bayan-Kara-Ula? When asked, the locals just shook their heads and refused to answer. An elder whispered, "They came from the sky. We fought them, but they had no weapons, only sad eyes and a message that no one dared to listen to in its entirety." Mysterious object, the first Dropa stone revealed. Among the skeletons, the archaeologists discovered a round stone disc with a hole in the middle, less than 2 centimeters thick and engraved with spiral grooves from the center to the outer edge. At first, they thought it was a decoration or an ancient stele. But when they examined it closely under a magnifying glass, they realized that the grooves were not decorations, but writing. The characters were unlike any known ancient language. Not hieroglyphs, not phonetics, not binary code. Each groove was engraved with thousands of tiny characters, as small as hairs, curved delicately and regularly. And it was just one of more than 700 discs discovered over the next 20 years. Professor Tsum Um Nui in a fit of excitement, wrote in his diary, "We may have found a library, not of books, but of stone, a treasure trove of knowledge from a forgotten civilization. But who left it? And for whom?" The suspicious silence of the authorities. Soon after Professor Tsum Um's initial report was sent to Beijing, all information was kept strictly confidential. The archaeological team was split up. The records were confiscated, and Tsum Um mysteriously disappeared from the scientific community. No one knew whether he had retired, been forced to quit, or was dealt with because the discovery was too dangerous. Some unofficial records said that the discs were transferred to the Xi'an Museum, but then disappeared too. Nearly 30 years later, in 1962, another scholar, Tsum Um Nui, picked up the abandoned research and published the first translation of the Dropa language. And that was when the mystery went beyond the boundaries of archaeology, progress, and into the realm of cosmology and extraterrestrial life. The discovery has never been recorded in history textbooks. No major university teaches about the Dropa Stones. No official museum acknowledges the existence of the 700-plus discs. There are no official close-up photos, other than copies, sketches, or images that are believed to have been smuggled out before the authorities seized them. All we have are accounts, unofficial translations, and a question that no one dares to answer. If the discs were real, and if the story carved in the stone told of a creature from a distant star, why did the world ignore it? Chapter 2. The strange shape and structure of the Dropa stone discs. Messages from extraterrestrials? When people wrote history in ink, someone else wrote it down in stone, and with a wisdom that has never been understood. In the heart of the ancient mountain of Bayan-Kara-Ula, hundreds of strange stone discs are quietly arranged in the dark, as if they are still waiting for something. An explanation, a pair of eyes sharp enough to read what was sent thousands of years ago. Not everyone can see the strangeness in those stone plates, but for those who are sensitive enough, they will realize these are not ordinary stones, and certainly not the work of a primitive culture. Seemingly simple shape, but a maze of extraordinary geometry. All the discs found have one thing in common: a flat circle, about 22 to 30 centimeters in diameter, only 2 centimeters thick, with a perfect circular hole in the middle. At first glance, they look exactly like an old vinyl record or a signal receiver. But what has shaken researchers is not the external shape. It is the spiral structure running from the center of the disc to the edge, and those spirals are made up of thousands of tiny characters. Not random engravings, not decorative patterns, but a complete language, carrying the logic of an advanced information transmission system. Some researchers call it spiral writing, because this writing follows a special geometric principle can only be understood by rotating the disc under light, as if it requires some kind of scanning device, not from our time. Stone material, a piece that doesn't fit geological history. Under an electron microscope, the surface of the disc reveals something surprising. The stone used is not ordinary local stone. Analysis of its composition shows that it contains very high concentrations of cobalt, nickel, and iron. Rare and extremely hard elements that are difficult to work with even with modern technology. So how did the ancients, if they were really the authors, carve this super hard material with micrometer precision? A Soviet physicist once put forward a bold hypothesis in the 1970s. It cannot be ruled out that these discs were produced in a zero-gravity environment, or at least with technology that we have never encountered. The characters do not belong to any known language system. The characters engraved on the disc do not belong to any alphabet yet discovered. Not Egyptian hieroglyphs, not Sumerian phonetics, not Mesopotamian cuneiform. They consist of curves, spirals, dots, and symbols that repeat in a regular pattern, more reminiscent of a form of information encoding than of conventional writing. Even when compared to recordings of signals from outer space, such as the WOW signal from 1977, some of the characters show unusual similarities in frequency and waveform. One linguist once exclaimed, "I'm not sure this is a language. It may be the mental interface of a species that does not need speech, but records its thoughts by carving them Dropa Stone. Strange sounds and frequencies when a disk is impacted. A strange phenomenon was noted by Soviet scientists while studying copies of the disk in 1974. When a disk is lightly struck or rotated at a certain speed, it emits a sound at a high frequency that is inaudible to the human ear, but is recorded by a sonar. The frequency fluctuates around 12,000 Hz, 17,000 Hz, very close to the ultrasonic level used by many modern transceivers. This leads to a controversial hypothesis. Could disks not only be information storage devices, but also ancient communication devices, like a kind of data CD of an extraterrestrial civilization? Spiral complex, a recurring structure in nature and the universe. The spiral, the main motif in the design of the Dropa disk, is not accidental. It is a form that exists everywhere in nature and the universe, from human DNA to shells to hurricanes to the structure of galaxies. Some scholars believe that the Dropa disks not only depict symbols, but also hide some kind of physical or technological model, like an anti-gravity engine or a three-dimensional map of space. When the disk spiral shape was put into computer simulations, some aerospace engineers even found that it had the ability to direct wind and disperse energy, similar to the structures used in modern jet engines. The mystery is in the details. No two disks are exactly the same, although hundreds have been found. Each seems to contain its own message. Some disks are metallic in color. Others are as dark as basalt, as if fired at different temperatures, which is incongruous for an ancient level. Some of the disks exhibit a strange light reflection phenomenon. At certain angles, they glow slightly even without a direct light source, a door that no one dares to open. Many researchers believe that these disks may be hiding a series of messages one after another, like an encoded encyclopedia, only readable if you put them in the right order, at the right angle, at the right rotation speed. But perhaps the scariest thing is not that we don't understand the Dropa disk, but this: we lost the key to understanding it thousands of years ago. Chapter 3. Tsum Um Nui, the translator of the language of the stars and the hidden story of decoding. When you are faced with a truth that is too great, you have only two choices: share it or be buried with it. A strange name, a mysterious life. Tsum Um Nui, a name that sounds like a whisper of the mountain wind, did not appear in any official scientific records until the 1960s. But to non-mainstream researchers and Western cultural scholars, he is a legendary figure, the first and possibly only person to claim to have deciphered the language engraved on the Dropa stone. The problem is, no one knows for sure where he came from, when he was born, or even if he really existed. Some documents say that Tsum Um Nui was a Chinese linguist of Japanese descent who worked at a small research institute of the Beijing Academy of Sciences. Others believe he was a disgraced scholar, living in seclusion with no public record because he had touched on sensitive areas. But one thing is almost certain: he had direct contact with at least a dozen genuine Dropa disks and deciphered some of the inscriptions inside. The lost translation and what remains. In 1962, Tsum Um Nui published his first scientific report with the title, "The Man from the Star, Decoding a Series of Ancient Characters from the Bayan-Kara-Ula Mountains." In this report, he asserted that the characters engraved on the discs are an ancient form of symbolic language, unlike any known writing system. These characters are repeated on many discs, representing a system of encrypted writing, almost like a continuous recording of data, a travel diary in nature. And most shocking of all, the contents of the discs recount a spaceship crash some 12,000 years ago. Messages from the lost. Tsum Um Nui's translation, though only abridged, contains chillingly haunting passages. We come from a distant planet. Our spaceship crashed and could not leave Earth. The natives feared us. We could not communicate. We were hunted and killed. Some survived. We left traces, hoping that one day someone would understand. Some later manuscripts also mention space coordinates, which have yet to be deciphered. A description of a binary star system, possibly Sirius A and B, and a distress call, apparently addressed to a mother station in space. silence, and mysterious disappearance. Soon after the report was sent out, according to multiple sources, Tsum Um Nui was forced to retract all statements. He disappeared from the Chinese academic community. The original version of the report is no longer available in any official library. Only a few faint copies, which are believed to have been leaked abroad, fell into the hands of Western researchers and became the basis for a series of articles in the 1970s, 1980s. A German UFO researcher, Erich von Daniken, once wrote in his diary, "I had the feeling that Tsum Um Nui had found the door and was immediately pushed back into darkness by the world." Theories about his disappearance. There are three main theories about Tsum Um Nui's fate. Forced to leave academia and live in anonymity. Some believe that he was forbidden by the government to reveal information, forced to change his name, and lived in a remote rural area for the rest of his life. Killed to silence him. A darker theory, that he was killed for touching a secret beyond human control, snapped out of China by a secret organization. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Tsum Um Nui was rescued by an international organization that tracks extraterrestrial phenomena, taking him to South America or Switzerland, where he continued his research in secret. Scattered clues and leaked information. After his disappearance, some strange documents began to appear. A blurry photo of a man believed to be Tsum Um Nui standing next to a stone plate. A notebook written in ancient Japanese, discovered in a Hong Kong flea market, contains detailed drawings of the spiral system and the Dropa script. A copy of the report is kept in secret at the Tokyo Institute of International Studies Library as an unclassified document, accessible only to a select few scholars. A name erased from history or hidden. There is no clear evidence that Tsum Um Nui existed, but no one has proven that he did not exist. And it is this void that creates a magical attraction, making him a symbol of knowledge being persecuted. Like Giordano Bruno, who was burned for saying the universe was infinite, or Galileo, who was silenced for seeing mountains on the moon, Tsum Um Nui, if he did exist, may have been the first person to translate another civilization's message to humanity. We came in peace, but fear killed that message. And then history buried us with your silence. Translated by Tsum Um Nui from Dropa CD number 26. Chapter 4. The Dropa, Myth or a Species That Lived Among Us. One of the most thrilling parts of the entire Dropa Stone saga. This part will delve into the folklore of the Bayan-Kara-Ula Mountains, strange encounters with mysterious dwarves, and genetic clues that have left the world baffled. This is where the story begins to cross the line between science, legend, and hidden truth. The big question is, who are the Dropa, and do they still live among us? Chapter 4. The Dropa, Myth or a Species That Lived Among Us. There are species that walk the earth, but they do not belong here. The mystery of folklore, little gods falling from the sky. On the desolate mountains of the Bayan-Kara-Ula range, the indigenous people, mainly the Ham and Dropka people, have been passing down a story for ages. In the old days, balls of fire fell from the sky. Small creatures with big heads, bright eyes, and weak limbs came out from there. They did not speak our language, but brought light and knowledge. Later, the villagers feared them and hunted them down like demons. At first it sounds like a fairy tale, but when compared with the content that Tsum Um Nui had decoded from a stone disc, the details in the folklore become strangely chilling because they match almost perfectly. The spaceship falls, corresponding to the message on the stone disc about the journey through space abruptly ended. Small creature with a big head evokes the classic appearance of gray aliens. Big head, small body, deep black eyes. Feared and attacked by humans. Consistent with the content on Dropa disc number 42, describing the bloody nightmare they had to go through. Dropa people, did humans really exist? In the late 1930s, during the same archaeological expedition that discovered the Dropa stone, researchers also recorded a strange phenomenon. The presence of a small group of people living isolated in a remote valley. Their characteristics are extremely unusual. The average height is only 1.2 to 1.3 meters, much shorter than the Han or Tibetan people in the area. unusually large, oval head, high and wide forehead, deep black eyes, with a reflective membrane very similar to the cat's eye phenomenon, helping them see clearly in low light conditions. No eyebrows or very sparse, small, and weak limb bones. Unusual language ability. They use a system of isolated syllables, almost impossible to translate into Chinese. Western researchers later called them Dropa people, not only because they lived near the place where the stone disc was discovered, but also because of the creepy physical similarity to the description in ancient texts. Genetic hypothesis: a species not purely human? In 1995, a group of scientists from Europe claimed to have conducted secret blood tests on hair and bone samples from ancient tombs in this area and discovered the Dropa people's genome contained a sequence of nucleotides never recorded in any race on Earth. The difference was not just a small mutation, but more like the sign of a separate evolutionary lineage, not descended from modern Homo sapiens. A Swiss biologist once said in an interview, later removed from national television, if true, the Dropa are not an evolutionary branch of humanity, but a migratory species. After that, all data on this test disappeared from the International Biomedical Database. No copies, no original records, silent extinction, or deliberate retreat. By the early 21st century, hardly anyone had seen the real Dropa. The villages that had been recorded had disappeared or had been assimilated into other ethnic groups. There were theories that they died out because they could not adapt to the climate and food of Earth, or they had retreated into secret cave systems, which had been found during archaeological excavations but were later sealed off. A more daring theory suggests they received a signal or rescue from the place they once called home. A photograph and a strange witness. In the archives of a French photographer who visited Tibet in 1947, there's a black and white photograph that has been banned from publication for decades. A group of children with very large heads and small bodies, playing by a stream. One child in the photo turns back, his eyes jet black and reflective. The photographer wrote in his diary, "They don't look like people, but their smiles sadder than any other creatures I've ever seen." The Dropa, not disappeared, but watching. Some contemporary scholars argue that the Dropa are not extinct, but have adapted and integrated by changing their appearance, their genetics, or even hiding in the form of modern humans. They could be monstrous children born with extraordinary intelligence. They could be silently watching the evolution of humanity. Or maybe they're still waiting for the day to return when humanity is intelligent enough, or humble enough, to listen again to the messages on the ancient stone tablets. They're not lost. They're just waiting for the right moment to return and finish the story that we have not yet understood. Now we come to Chapter 5, where the story takes a very exciting and dramatic turn. The Soviet Union's secret hunt, Project Ancient Disk, and the intervention of hidden forces. This part seems like it came out of a science fiction detective novel, but it is based on many real pieces found scattered in secret documents of the Cold War, starting with a Soviet UFO researcher, then a secret laboratory deep in the Caucasus Mountains, and finally mysterious deaths without explanation. Chapter 5, Project Ancient Disk, the Soviet Union and the mysterious hunt behind the Iron Curtain. In the deepest darkness, sometimes one finds light, but it can also be an abyss. 1968, telegram from Beijing to Moscow. In a leaked document from the GRU Military Intelligence Service, later made public by former agent Vasily Mitryan, there is a reference to a coded telegram sent by a Soviet spy operating in China in late 1968. The brief content is as follows. A disc-shaped artifact engraved with a spiral code, unlike any known antiquity, has been deposited at Xi'an University. The relevant information is sealed, possibly related to extraterrestrial technology. Request to activate Project Arkansas. Project Ark, a code word that has been leaked several times in Soviet documents, is believed to be the internal name for the program to collect extraordinary technological artifacts, including UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence. From there, the the Soviet Union began one of the most bizarre intelligence operations in the history of modern archaeology, the search for the Dropa Stone. Nikolai Fyodorovich, the obsessed ancient disc hunter. The central character of this program is Dr. Nikolai Fyodorovich, a linguist and signal decoding expert who worked on UFO research project for the Soviet military. According to declassified records after 1991, Nikolai had decoded a repeating signal from the Cosmos satellite in 1962, which he believed to be of extraterrestrial origin, wrote 3 censored articles which emphasized there's a strange coincidence between some symbols on ancient Tibetan stones and signal codes detected by military satellites. When he heard about the Dropa Stone, he asked to go directly to China as an archaeologist, but was refused. However, he did not give up. The Soviet Union recreated the Dropa Stone in a record kept at the K-24 laboratory deep in the Caucasus Mountains, later confirmed as one of the centers for the study of unusual materials. Experiments were conducted with a replica of the Tibetan stone disc, made of a composite material containing a mixture of strange metals and basalt. The results shocked many scientists. When the disc was rotated at high speed in a strong electromagnetic environment, it emitted ultrasonic sounds that were inaudible to the human ear, but could be recorded by special sensors. This sound was in the form of a repeating wave, like a digital communication code. Some of the sound waves in the experiment also had a temporary effect on the brain, causing the listener to fall into a half-awake, half-asleep state, as if hypnotized. Conclusion: never officially announced. This is not just an antique. It could be an information storage device or ancient communication technology. The K-24 laboratory explosion and the disappeared. In 1972, a huge explosion occurred in the very laboratory where the stone disk was being studied. 3 scientists were killed, 4 missing, and all records were sealed. From then on, all research on the ancient disk was suspended, and all records related to Nikolai Fyodorovich were erased from the Soviet library system. There's a theory that Fyodorovich tried to recreate the signal from the stone disk and trigger some kind of unknown reaction. The last letter and the warning. One of the documents leaked in the 1990s was a handwritten letter that Fyodorovich allegedly sent to a colleague in Poland just a few weeks before the explosion. In it, he wrote, "I believe I have deciphered the first part. It is not just a diary, it is a frequency map, an instruction to open the communication gate. If I disappear, remember, not all artifacts are meant to be explored. Some are meant to be buried. International interference. Those who don't want the truth to be known." According to some investigative journalists, it wasn't just the Soviets who were interested in the Dropa Stone. The CIA, NASA, and even secret organizations like MJ-12, Majestic 12, also made requests for access to samples of the stone or decoding information. A leaked, unconfirmed report claimed that the CIA arranged a secret exchange with Soviet intelligence to obtain a piece of the Tibetan ancient disc, and then took it to Area 51 to be studied along with the fragments from Roswell. The ancient disc project ends, or into a new form. Although the code name Ancient Disc Project disappeared after the 1980s, many researchers believe that the experiments are still being carried out quietly, in the form of interdisciplinary research on core non-human languages and artificial intelligence materials. Some specimens from China have been shipped to Europe or the US via the black market. We may never know the truth about these stone discs, not because they do not exist, but because there are forces that have decided humanity is not ready to understand. Enter Chapter 6, Global Cover-Up Efforts, from Beijing to Washington. Who fears the truth coming out? A chapter full of intrigue, brain teasers, and behind-the-scenes action around the world. This is where the Dropa Stone story becomes more than just an archaeological discovery, but a global strategic secret, drawing the attention and interference of powerful governments, intelligence agencies, and even shadowy organizations that never officially existed. Chapter 6, Global Cover-Up Efforts, from Beijing to Washington. Who fears the truth coming out? The real secret is not what you don't know, but what you've been forced to forget. The Chinese missed a suspicious silence. After the Dropa stone was half-baked in the late 1960s, the Chinese government abruptly changed its tune. All documents relating to the excavation at Bayan-Kara-Ula were sealed as top secret, and scientists such as Tsum Um Nui and his colleagues were dismissed from the academic record. Notably, no further reports were published after 1969, although more than 10 manuscripts were in preparation. The Stone Plate Preservation Laboratory at Xi'an University was closed, and all artifacts disappeared for reasons of restoration. Some believe the government feared that if the world learned that extraterrestrial life had landed in ancient China, the entire historical foundation and political power would be threatened. However, the larger question is, did China carry out this cover-up on its own, or was it under pressure from outside? CIA gets involved, non-existent people appear. According to some leaked documents published by WikiLeaks from 1974 to 1989, the CIA conducted at least 3 intelligence-gathering missions in northwest China with the stated objective, unidentified disc-shaped artifacts, Tibet sector. Interesting information. One of the missions involved a secret research team from the Stargate Project, a unit that used sixth sense and remote viewing to search for extraterrestrial objects. A special report noted there was a strange energy field presence around the area where the stone disk was buried. A top-secret report called Echo Protocol records an interview with a retired spy who was in charge of communications between Washington and an unnamed person in Beijing. The Chinese don't want it leaked, but they don't have the skills to decipher it. They need us, or we need them to keep quiet. Majestic 12, the name's never mentioned. Majestic 12, MJ-12, a mysterious organization supposedly founded by President Truman in 1947, shortly after the Roswell incident. Its mission: to process, collect, and control all information and artifacts related to extraterrestrial life. An unconfirmed memo once mentioned. Dropa stones, if verified, represent the Rosetta Stone of extraterrestrial communication. Their public exposure must be prevented at all costs. The memo also outlines 3 possible responses to leaks. Disable witnesses through media targeting, labeling them as conspiracy theorists. Academic intervention, using research institutes to counter lack of authentic archaeological evidence. Seize physical objects through closed diplomacy. Silencing witnesses, unnatural deaths. In the 30 years since the Dropa stone was first announced, at least 7 independent researchers who claim to have found authentic evidence have committed suicide under suspicious circumstances, encountered an unexplained traffic accident, disappeared while traveling to Tibet or the Sichuan region. A famous example, Professor Robert Harrington, an astronomer who once suggested that the solar system had a strange visitor close to Earth in ancient times. 3 months after that statement, he died of cancer just 3 weeks after it was discovered, leading many to suspect poisoning. Why was the truth hidden? There are many theories as to why the powers that be are determined to bury the truth about the Dropa stone. Religious cultural conflict. Confirmation of aliens visiting Earth could collapse thousands of years of belief systems. Technological advantage. If the stone disk contained advanced information or technology, it could give the country that owns it absolute advantage. Control of the population. Humanity is easier to manipulate when it is naive about its place in the universe. An internal report from the American Political Science Institute in 1993 stated, if the public believes that their ancestors communicated with extraterrestrial intelligence, their trust in the state and its system of order will be seriously questioned. Secrets cannot be hidden forever, despite all attempts to silence them. The internet age has meant that the Dropa story has never really gone away. Unofficial translations of the stone disk's inscriptions circulate on secret forums. Geomagnetic maps show that the Bayan-Kara-Ula region has unusual magnetic signatures, similar to the O. There have been objects that have fallen from space. And every year, secret expeditions still visit this area, although most never return with clear evidence. Some things cannot be buried forever. Like light through a crack, the truth will find its way out. Now we come to one of the most fascinating and surprising chapters. Chapter 7. Synchronous signals. Were the Dropa disks part of an ancient cosmic communication system? Not all signals need to be heard by ear. There are whispers encoded in light, magnetic fields, and time. 1. When the disk makes sound? In 1994, while trying to recreate the Dropa disk's material structure from surviving records, a team of German engineers led by Dr. Heinrich Kammler discovered a strange phenomenon. When a sample of the disk was rotated on a magnetic axis and pulsed laser light was shined on it, the disk emitted ultrasonic sounds, like an echo from the Earth. A spectral analysis showed that the signal had a repeating waveform, a form of encoded frequency. Dr. Kammler stated, "It's not just a solid object. It could be an ancient communication device, or at least a communications transmitter/receiver." Shortly thereafter, his lab was suspended from funding and all data was seized for investigation by an unknown government organization. 2. Ghost signals from space and surprising coincidences. Over the past 50 years, astronomers have detected hundreds of unusual radio signals from space. Some of them are classified as FRB, fast radio burst, extremely short, extremely powerful bursts of radio waves. VLF, very low frequency, extremely low frequencies, which can penetrate the atmosphere and travel millions of kilometers. But the amazing thing is, some of these signals match the repeating spiral patterns on the Dropa Stone disks. Specifically, an FRB signal recorded in 2001, with a pulse structure identical to the code location on one of the lost stone disks, was reconstructed from old archive photos from 1978. Professor of Ancient Acoustics Elena Sabo calls this a synchronization beyond chance. Either this is a signal sent intentionally, or the stone disk is an archive of a radio message from tens of thousands of years ago. 3. Global connection. Ancient spiral objects are present all over the world. Not only in China, spiral symbols, similar to the pattern on the Dropa disk, also appear on the Newgrange pillar in Ireland, dating back 5,000 years, in the carvings of the Anasazi people in North America, on the domes of some ancient temples in Mesopotamia, in the sound chambers. All of these places have something strange in common. They lie on ley lines, ancient energy axes suspected of having unusual magnetic fields. When tested with frequency measuring devices, many of them emitted background waves that matched the frequency of the simulated Dropa disk. The hypothesis is put forward. These objects are not cultural symbols, but part of an ancient communication system, an interplanetary network. 4. Frequency map, decoding the spiral inscription. According to Tsum Um Nui's notes, most of the characters on the disk are not descriptive languages, but combinations of characters that repeat in cycles. Some characters appear exactly every 137 times, a prime number closely related to the fundamental physical constant, alpha, in quantum physics. When a team of researchers in France used AI software to analyze the rhythmic pattern and the cyclical structure, they discovered the characters can be spatial coordinate identifiers when applied to a four-dimensional spatial model. That is, the stone disk may contain a celestial map encoded by frequency, leading to a specific region of space. 5. The acoustic interference experiment and the phenomenon of climax. In 2015, a team of scientists in Chile conducted an experiment to recreate the signal from the stone disk and discovered that when playing sound waves simulating the Dropa code in a vacuum chamber, the nanoparticles oscillated in a spiral pattern, exactly like the galaxy model. Some magnetic field measuring devices were interfered, not recording a signal for 12 consecutive seconds. And then, when they rotated the simulated stone disk at the same time as the frequency was emitted, a flash of blue-violet light flashed for a moment, like a microscopic plasma phenomenon. Although they were not conclusive, they named the phenomenon frequency gate. 6. The forgotten warning. Not all signals should be activated. A final paragraph in Tsum Um Nui's handwritten manuscript reads, "If the code is read backwards, it is no longer a map. It becomes a call, a signal demanding an answer." This sentence caused a stir in the ufology community. Because if the stone disk had been sending a call, then who would have received it? And if someone were moving towards us, would they be friendly visitors, as the ancient text described? 7. So, is the ancient communication system real? No one can confirm it 100%, but the chain of events, facts, and experiments makes the following hypothesis impossible to ignore. The Dropa stone discs are not just archaeological evidence, but a fragment of an ancient interplanetary communication system, a network that once operated on Earth and could connect to other celestial bodies. If Dropa were indeed visitors from a distant star, then the stone discs are the radio's off-the-air activities. The question is, have we accidentally turned the signal back on? And is someone listening? Chapter 8. The Final Journey. Reconstructing the Dropa's journey through space and the disaster they encountered. Some journeys begin not with a step, but with a cry for help from the stars. 1. The clues from the stone discs. A fateful journey. Based on the inscriptions on the stone discs, especially the passages that were deciphered by Tsum Um Nui and his team before they were banned from publication. A strange but moving picture is gradually pieced together. We came from another world, passing through the darkness, following the light to find shelter. But an accident happened, and we fell to this place, where the sky is never the same as home. Researchers believe that the Dropa did not come to Earth for the purpose of invasion or exploration, but rather to find a place to settle after an unforeseen disaster in their star system. 2. The Mother Star. Did they come from Alpha Centauri or Sirius? One disk describes rings of light circling a double blue sun. Some astronomers believe this description is very similar to Sirius B, a white dwarf located next to Sirius A, once mentioned by the Dogon people of Africa as the home of flying gods. Or Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth, with 2 bright stars and a potentially habitable planet. We are not leaving to conquer, but because it is no longer possible to live there. Some discs describe a journey that may take generations, possibly through biological hibernation or space-folding technology. 3. Accident. Unplanned collision. At least 4 discs describe a red light tearing through the night sky, followed by violent shaking and an explosion of white light. Another disc reads, "We tried to avoid it, but the celestial arm was too close. The gravity caught us, and the boat was pulled down." Based on the description and the geographical location where the disc was excavated, researchers hypothesized that the Dropa spacecraft was attracted by the gravitational force of the Himalayas, where the magnetic field is very strong, causing the orbit to deviate. The ship collided with a small asteroid, broke the navigation structure, and fell into the Bayan-Kara-Ula area. This was not a visit. It was a crash, a fateful fall of exiles from a distant galaxy. 4. Surviving on an alien planet. After falling, the surviving Dropa did what no one could imagine. They tried to survive. They immersed themselves in the environment of Earth, a strange, harsh, and oxygen-poor world compared to their mother planet. According to Tsum Um Nui's interpretation, we set up camp in the valley, in the dark and the ice. Our bodies were not used to the thin air. Many fell, but we still recorded our journey, so that one day we would be found. The Dropa also engraved coded messages on stone discs, like a black box sent to future generations. 5. Communication with ancient Earthlings. Some discs record the Dropa's contact with the indigenous people living in the mountain range, possibly the ancestors of the Dropa, a people who have lived in isolation to this day. At first they were afraid of us, calling us demons, but then they gave them water, fire, and food. We taught them to draw the sky and count the cycles of light. Some scholars believe that the Dropa left behind astronomical knowledge that transcended their time, explaining why some ethnic minorities in the Himalayas had detailed knowledge of constellations and planets from very early times. They may have lived for several more generations, even interbreeding with the natives, leading to strange legends of light-skinned, big-headed, dark-eyed dwarves who once appeared from the sky. 6. The final tragedy, extinction and isolation. According to the end of a now-lost stone disc, the Dropa wrote, "We waited for the signal, but no one answered. The gate closed forever. This will be our grave. It is possible that after falling to Earth, they tried to send a distress signal, but no one received it, or the mother planet was destroyed. As the remaining population dwindled due to unsuitable biological conditions, the Dropa eventually died out, leaving their memories in spiral stone discs. 7. Are they still around? A controversial theory suggests that the Dropa people are not completely extinct, but are hiding in caves deep under the mountains, where there's an unusual magnetic field and no one has set foot. Some expeditions in 2007, 2012 discovered caves emitting weak radio waves, but could not decipher them. 8. The last message from the stars. If the Dropa Stone hypothesis is true, then this is not just a story about aliens, but the story of survivors, distant beings who fell on a strange planet and tried not to let their existence be forgotten. They are not conquerors. They are souls trapped in a galaxy. And the stone discs are the last words that echo to this day. We came from the sky, and when we left, we took nothing with us but this story. Chapter 9. The response signal. Will the Dropa return? There are whispers in space that we do not understand. But one day, when the whispers become knocks on the door, who will come in? 1. Mysterious signal from the nearest star. In August 2020, astronomers at the Parkes Observatory in Australia recorded an unusual radio signal, originating from the direction of Proxima Centauri, the closest star to Earth, only 4.24 light-years away. What's strange? The signal is unlike any other natural astronomical phenomenon ever recorded. It has a spiral pulse structure eerily similar to the pattern engraved on a lost Dropa stone disc. And what makes scientists goosebumps? This signal carries a series of repeating frequencies according to the prime harmonics rule, prime number resonance, which appeared on stone disc number 27. This cannot be a coincidence. Someone is trying to imitate the language of ancient stone discs. Professor Bernard Haugen, astrophysicist. 2. The return of the ancient sound gate. In May 2023, a Russian expedition team discovered an ancient stone chamber under the permafrost in the Altai Mountains. Inside was a dome-shaped wall with an echo-resonating structure like a sound resonator. On the wall was a series of strange characters, matching the characters engraved on the first 3 Dropa discs found in 1938. When they accidentally played low-frequency electronic music near this area, a part of the wall vibrated gently, emitting a weak plasma-like purple-blue light. The oscilloscope recorded directional acoustic interference, an extremely rare phenomenon in a natural environment. The hypothesis: this is a leftover trigger or a communication gateway encoded in sound waves. 3. Is the trip preparing? A leaked report from the Bayan-Kara-Ula research lab in Dubna, Russia, spread on underground science forums, shows that they are researching how to reconstruct the frequencies from the Dropa disk using quantum AI. A preliminary design is titled Project Echo Dropa, Interstellar Response Protocol. An anonymous engineer commented on the darknet, "We may not understand the full implications, but when the simulated response signal from Disk 19 was transmitted, the low-orbit satellites were jammed for 18 seconds. Something heard it. For warning from the Dogon and the mysterious prophecy. The Dogon people of Mali, once believed to have ancient connections with the Sirius people, still hold a legend. When the light from the east shakes like water, and the circle from the north shines like amber, the far one will find his way back." In 2021, meteorological satellites recorded an unusual amber aurora appearing over the North Pole, at the same time as the Proxima interference. Is this a coincidence or a sign? 5. Final response, or an alarm signal. A shocking hypothesis has been put forward. Maybe the Dropa stone discs are more than just historical notes. They are code keys, part of a navigation or warning system. When enough data is activated, the signal is transmitted. It can send the Earth's coordinates again, re-establish contact with the home star system if they are still alive, or call another entity, not necessarily the Dropa. 6. If they return, what awaits us? The 3 most likely possibilities put forward by theorists. 1. Reunion. the Dropa or their descendants find the temporary planet. They may have evolved or continued to migrate from the old planet. They come back not to reclaim anything, but to learn what is left of their kind. 2. Purge. Another species receives the signal. Not the Dropa, but the force pursuing them. And when we accidentally turn on the call for help, they take it as a sign that the target is present. 3. Ancient awakening. The signal activates an artificial intelligence from tens of thousands of years ago. It is possible that the Dropa left behind an automated intelligence, a form of AI in exile. And when the stone disk is activated at the right frequency, it will awaken and complete its unfinished task, finding its way home or calling someone. 7. The end or another beginning. Dropa, real or not, has left behind one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Is it archaeological evidence? Is it paleogenetic code? Is it the sad memory of a people exiled from the stars? We don't have a definite answer, but the stone disk is still there. The spiral is still spinning, and something is still listening. Great! Now we enter Chapter 10, the final chapter where all the clues, all the hypotheses, all the silent vibrations from millennia will come together. This is not only the end of the Dropa Stone story, but also a wake-up call, a gateway to the vast future in the vast universe. Keycap 10, Chapter 10. End or beginning. The silence echoes from the stars. Some stories do not end with a full stop, but with a silence deep enough for another civilization to speak. 1. The mysterious disappearance of the discs. In the 1990s, according to many independent researchers, most of the original Dropa Stone discs, including the 12 most important ones, disappeared from the Xi'an Provincial History Museum. There were no shipping records, no notices of removal, no official archived images. A retired museum employee revealed. One night in March 1995, people in uniforms without badges came. They ordered all the cameras to be turned off. The next morning, only the display cases were empty. A clandestine search of a European black market once turned up rumors. One disc turned up in Zurich, then was bought by a private research group. Another disc was allegedly intercepted at Frankfurt Airport, then never to be heard from again. 2. A researcher's suicide note. In 2012, Professor Michel Verne, an expert in ancient languages, committed suicide in his apartment in Lyon, France. On his desk, police found an unfinished translation of a rare Dropa disc. At the bottom of the page is a handwritten, graphite-scrawled note. They are not dead. They are only sleeping, and the call from the earth has awakened them. No one knows how he came into contact with the original document. But shortly after his death, his personal computer was seized by unknown authorities. 3. Connection to mysterious disappearances around the world. Independent investigators began to link a series of strange disappearances around the world to the Dropa files. 2014, a German archaeologist went missing during a private trip to the Bayan-Kara-Ula region. The last trace was a photo he took of a broken stone disc, engraved with a new, never-before-seen character. 2019, a group of Chinese YouTubers vlogging about exploring the mountain range recorded a strange echo like a human voice whispering through the stone. They lost contact for 37 hours. When they were found, the group had no memory of anything, and their eyes were abnormally dilated as if they had been exposed to extremely strong ultraviolet rays. 4. The last Tibetan monk's prophecy. In an isolated temple on the eastern slopes of the Himalayas, an old lama, who claimed to be the keeper of the record of celestial visitors, once made a chilling prophecy. When 3 meteors pass by in the same season, when voices echo from the ice mountain, and when humans re-establish the ancient characters, then the spiral will turn again, opening the door to the nameless beings. As of 2025, all 3 signs have occurred. 5. The final response. We heard it. In March 2025, an independent team in Chile attempted to reconstruct the frequency structure of 4 restored Dropa discs, transmitted via a closed satellite in the low-frequency band of 11.2 kHz. 72 hours later, The ALMA radio telescope received a series of echoing tones. Decoding them together, they obtained a line in a language that was a mixture of Dropa characters and ancient Sumerian. We heard it, then nothing more. 6. Disc 716. The final memory? Legend has it that there were 716 stone discs in total, but only 716 have never been found. A mysterious rumor circulates among researchers. Disc 716 is the only one carved from alloy, not stone, and it is a biological data drive containing simulated memories of all the surviving Dropa people. The last place it was mentioned? A secret Soviet military report from 1962 with the words highlighted in red. No access. Unidentified biological data. Risk of sensitive assault. 7. A final word for Earth? If the Dropa Stone hypothesis is true, if these distant visitors are still out there somewhere, then the question is no longer do they exist, but do we really understand what they want? They have been there, perhaps in pain, perhaps in distress. They have left their stories in stone, in writing, in silence. And now, they have heard us.